Hello guys, welcome to the first video of the Karpov-Kasparov series, a series in which we go through the greatest chess rivalry to probably ever exist in the world of chess, and today we're looking at their first ever encounter. It's 12 years old Garry Kasparov who went to the prestigious Michal Bolvinnik chess school, and he got the chance among other top Soviet youngsters to play the world chess champion Anatoly Karpov. And Karpov became world chess champion by default the same year in 1975, because sadly Bobby Fischer stopped playing chess entirely and gave up his title. So Karpov's playing like 10 to 20 boards at the same time, he has the white pieces and he starts the game with e4. And you would say, okay, I'm playing against the world chess champion, let me play solidly with e5. But Kasparov responds with c5, the Sicilian, basically saying I want to have an unsymmetrical position and I want to fight for a win. Okay. Knight f3 by Karpov, d6, d4, c takes d4, knight takes d4, knight f6, knight c3, and a6, the Sicilian Najdorf. And the Najdorf is one of the most heavily analyzed openings there is. There is so much theory behind it, and this turned out to be one of Kasparov's lifetime repertoires. So here Karpov responds against the Najdorf with bishop e2, the Opogensky variation. And the Opogensky was known to be a bit more positional against the Najdorf, since Karpov was known to be a positional player. Okay, bishop e2. Now we can play knight c6, e6 or e5, the most aggressive move. Kasparov plays e5. Knight to b3. Bishop e7, simply developing. Bishop g5, bishop e6, and here usually white castles or plays a4 preventing b5, but here Karpov plays an interesting move, f4. Since after e takes f4, bishop takes f4, white has an isolated pawn, but black also has an isolated pawn. But okay, Kasparov is like, well, let me just develop my knight, knight c6, and now both sides castle. Nothing happening yet. Here, Karpov plays a nice move, a prophylactic move, king to h1. Since often Kasparov would like to play queen b6, which would come with tempo because it's a check. Okay, king to h1. Now b5, very thematic in the Sicilian Najdorf, expanding on the queen side. And now Karpov simply develops his bishop, defending this pawn, since if you play b4 and the knight has to move, the pawn is guarded. Okay, knight to e5, saying I want to take your bishop and get the bishop pair. But Karpov plays a nice move, knight to d4, since if you take the bishop now, we're not interested in taking it back immediately. We actually play this beautiful move, knight c6. Since we're attacking the queen and the bishop, queen has to move. We take the bishop with check, queen has to take, and now bishop takes d6. And look at this. So knight to d4 is a beautiful move. Kasparov sees that, he doesn't take the bishop. He plays bishop c4, one of the best moves, attacking the rook. And here the main moves are either bishop e2 or rook e1, but Karpov plays an interesting move again, rook to f2, which is not the best move actually. Okay, maybe he's preparing rook to d2 and have this pressure on this isolated pawn with 3 pieces. But after rook f2, Kasparov finds the best move, b4. Now the knight has to move, knight takes, pawn takes, and now rook to d2 doesn't work because we're not attacking the pawn anymore. Okay, e takes d5. Now bishop to f6, activating or dark squared bishop. And now rook to d2. But okay, rook to d2. Queen goes to b6. A nice move, activating the queen, connecting the rooks, and Kasparov has a better position. Now Karpov plays bishop to e3, saying, okay, I might have this discovered attack. And Kasparov was probably a bit scared about this move. He moved his queen again, but he probably should have activated his rook, since even if the knight jumps in, the bishop is actually hanging. No one is guarding the bishop. But okay, he moved his queen, getting out of this. But now after queen c7, we have bishop e4, and all of a sudden we're trying to attack on your king side. rook f to e8. And here one of the most beautiful moves of the game. Very quiet, bishop g1. Which might look like a weird move, but for example, if you play another move like b3 attacking the bishop, all of a sudden there's knight to g6, double attacking those two bishops, and even after bishop takes, pawn takes, and something like queen to f3, the bishop is attacked here, but we can take the pawn. After queen takes, there's queen to c3, double attacking this bishop, attacking the rook. So that's why bishop g1 is a really nice move. Okay, now g6, saying your bishop is a bit useless on the light squares, but it does weaken the dark squares around the king. Now a3, a nice move by Karpov, and here Kasparov should probably just ignore this move. He responds to it with a5, but that's what Karpov wants. Now he takes the pawn, and after pawn takes we take the rook, rook takes, and it looks like Kasparov has the a file, but after b3, the bishop has to go back all the way, and it's blocking the rook, and the rook is not on the center of the board anymore. So a really nice continuation by Karpov. Now he plays knight to c6, and after knight takes, pawn takes, he doubles his pawns. Okay, the rook comes to the middle of the board, but that's actually not the best move, because now Karpov has rook takes d6. But he didn't play this move, maybe because he was playing a lot of boards at the same time. He plays the second best move, bishop to d5, since our bishop was attacked. Okay, but now we have bishop c3 and Kasparov is back in the game. Only move is rook to f2 here, and rook to e1. But rook to e1 might not be the best move, because that allows queen to f3, and all of a sudden there's a triple attack on this pawn. So here Kasparov has only one move. He has to play defensively and play a rook to e7 back to guard this pawn. But he plays aggressively bishop d4. And that's actually the losing move of the game. Since after bishop d4, we have bishop takes f7 check. And after king to g7, there's only one move for Karpov to keep the advantage. I would say pause the video here and find the only move for white. So the only move that works here is not bishop d5 back, it's bishop c4. Why bishop c4? Well, if you take the bishop, it's actually mate in one. This is just checkmate. So you cannot take the bishop, but your bishop is hanging as well. So bishop c4 forces an exchange of pieces. For example, if we had played bishop d5, your bishop is not hanging, and black's actually better after queen to e7, guarding all those squares with the king and the queen. And all of a sudden, there's the threat of rook takes, king takes, and queen e1, checkmate. So you have to play something like h3, but still rook takes, king takes, queen e1 check, king comes up, and we win the rook. So that's why bishop c4 was the only winning move. Now you have to exchange all your pieces. Rook takes g1 check, king takes, bishop takes, and now king takes f2, bishop takes, pawn takes, and at the end of all those exchanges, white is up a pawn, and it's a passed pawn, which is very close to queening. So okay, Kasparov gives a check, king to e2, queen to d4, but simply queen to d5. If you take the queen, white is winning completely, so Kasparov keeps his queen. But now simply queen to e4, and there's nothing you can do. Okay, b3, c takes b3, giving a check again, but it doesn't really work. Simply king to f1, queen c1 check, bring the queen back. Kasparov tries to give a lot of checks, but he will run out of checks after king to h1, queen to b6. But now simply queen to e7 check, king to h6, and after the last check, Kasparov resigned the game. Why did he resign the game? Well, if you continue with the king forward, we take this pawn, and it's really hard to defend this. Okay, you can take this pawn, but simply h3. And if you give a check, we come up to h2, and you cannot give a check on those dark squares, and we will make another queen and win the game. I really hope you liked this video. If so, please like, subscribe or comment, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye bye.